Welcome to another episode of Hat Collecting. This month, the Disability Experience for Disability Pride Month in July. I am your host, Lacey Artemis. I am a white, feminine presenting person in my 40s. I am wearing a lavender sleeveless top, and I have long, dark brown hair. And I am joined today by Lauren Pires, who I know through the Speaker Slam world, and I will let Lauren introduce herself and describe herself.
Hello, I'm Lauren Pires. I am a South Asian millennial woman. I'm wearing a black tank top with white flowers, a necklace with a pendant that says yay, and I have black rimmed glasses and somewhat purple dark brown hair.
Thank you. And I apologize for pronouncing your last name wrong. I did not
No
realize.
problem.
So thank you for adjusting that. So yes, we are here this month. I'm doing a series of interviews with fellow people from the disabled community. And I'm happy to say that I've been able to get representation for a number of different disabled communities, not just the ones that I'm part of. So I would like you to tell us what disability or disabilities plural, that you live with that you want to talk about today.
Yes, so I was born with central core disease, which is a rare neuromuscular disorder where basically some of the mitochondria in my muscle cells is missing. And so you might have seen the meme or remember from science class that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell and it helps convert food into energy and energy into strength. And I have about 33% of the strength of the average person.
Wow. And I know that your tagline feels like the wrong word for it, but I know your thing it's 33% strength, 100% spirit, and I love that. And you and I have that in common, that we're both very, like, positive, high energy people. For
Yes.
you, it's it's the saying yay and the daily yay. And for me, it's shine language. So
I love it. We
um,
go together so well.
yeah, when I saw your thing, I was just like, Lauren is my kind of person.
Oh, thank you.
So you've kind of alluded to it here, how your disability kind of impacts your life and affects you. But so I know that we're both speakers now, and you're doing what I am striving to follow in the footsteps of and get more into disability advocacy and inspirational speaking. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into that?
Yes, so similar. I actually, whoa. So you had mentioned that we met through Speaker Slam, and that is actually where everything took off for me. Back in September of 2022, I had never spoken about my disability publicly. I had never thought I would. I didn't plan on it. I didn't think I was missing out on anything. A few people in my life knew, like close friends or family, but generally, people I worked with for years had no idea about my disability. I'd never really talked about it. Then Speaker Slam back then was doing a virtual competitions, and I decided, because the theme of the 2022 competition was impact, I decided to talk about the impact that my muscle disability has in my life. And that was actually the first time I ever spoke about it publicly. So I recorded the speech. I did 17 takes of the speech on a Friday. I sent it in. I was supposed to post it on the Monday, and I spent the entire weekend freaking out. And I thought about not posting it, but I was like, I've come this far. I've already done it. Let me actually go the full way. And so I posted it, and the most amazing cross section of people from my life commented on it and were super supportive. I was getting messages from my driving instructor, who I hadn't talked to in years, people I went to elementary and high school with, people who worked with me at past jobs. And I had never really um, wanted to share it because I was really worried about how people would think of me. But then I got a lot of support. And then once that kind of was my first step of the public speaking, I did Speaker Slam in 2023 as well, mostly just because it was the last competition virtually that they were going to do before they went back in person. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do the in person ones. I'll do this one. The theme was Body Beautiful. It seemed like a fit. I thought I'll do this one and I'll be done with it. But I happened to qualify for the Grand Slam, which is the Inspirational Speaking Finals, and then kind of went on a disability advocacy journey of, okay, if I'm going to the Grand Slam, what can I do to feel like I have things to talk about and to do more for disability awareness. So I then became an ambassador for the Invisible Disabilities Association. I did some more advocacy, and I happened to become the #2 Inspirational Speaker of the Year at the Grand Slam, and things kind of took off from there.
That's very cool. Yeah, I kind of somewhat stumbled into speaking as well, and it's kind of taking off, and it's been really exciting. And similar to you, as I say, I saw your post on LinkedIn the other day about hiding your disability for so long, and I very much relate to that because I worked for years, and like my autism happened to make me really good
Mm.
at my day job, which was accounting and bookkeeping.
Oh, of
But
course.
as I people that know me now, they would never, if you met me 15 years ago, like I was completely different. I was still
Mhm.
so much more awkward and just kind of introverted and just not. That's why I fit really well in accounting. I know there's a stereotype about it. Not all accountants have, are dry and have no personality, but
Mhm.
it is a stereotype for a reason. And as I kind of grew out of that, as I was starting to grow out of that and finding my confidence in my voice, I was still told, like, don't disclose, because like 9 times out of 10 it's only going to bite you in the butt. Like it's
Mm.
not like legally they have to give you accommodations, but like they can
Mm.
still find ways to make
Right.
your work life less pleasant, so you'll maybe want to like leave, and then they can get a non-disabled person to replace you.
Mhm.
So I technically have never officially disclosed the job before, but since I
Same.
kind of put that world mostly behind me, now I've gone full public. It's on my LinkedIn, it's on my website, it's on my Instagram, everywhere,
Mhm.
because it is my superpower now that I've learned how to harness it. And when I can
Mhm.
work the way that works for me, I'm kind of, I wouldn't say unstoppable, but I'm certainly a lot more capable.
Yep.
So I definitely relate to that, and it's really unfortunate that so many of us feel like we have to hide because we have gifts to offer the world, and
Mhm.
we're often underestimated and shortchanged and held back. So
Yeah.
I did want to ask. This wasn't part of the question set that I sent you, but you mentioned that your condition is rare. Do you have like a percentage for that?
I know that to be considered a rare disorder, it has to be the World Health Organization classifies that as 1 in 65, I believe. Um, that actually does I have to check those stats actually. I'm not sure if that's, I think it's something like that. So for central core disease specifically, it's one of the, congenital muscle disorders, so like a muscle disorder that's present at birth, and it's one of the more common ones of those, but generally it is a very rare disorder. I'm in a Facebook group for people who have either central core disease or other muscle disorders related to that gene and the gene that causes it. And there's only about 1,500 people in the group worldwide. So, of course, that's not like a, a collection of everyone in the world who has that, but you can tell just by those numbers, the group has been around, I think, 10 years or so of how many people may have it.
Right. Yeah. Um, what kind of work were you doing before, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so weirdly enough, I was doing festivals and events work. I was working at a nonprofit arts organization, and we put on one of the largest South Asian festivals in Mississauga at Mississauga Celebration Square. And I say weirdly enough because I definitely never thought I would ever work in events and festivals because you can imagine long hours on your feet, 15-hour days, a lot of back and forth and moving things around sometimes, and it really didn't seem like the kind of place that I would be able to survive at all. But the reason I took that job was originally I had applied for a PR role, public relations, at the nonprofit, because I went to school for PR. And I knew in school, in university, that I didn't want to do events, partly because of the survival aspect of it for me, and also, I just didn't really like events based on the events classes that I had done. So I applied for the PR role, thinking PR at an event won't be as bad. But they hired someone else for it and they offered me the event role. And I was like, oh no, I don't know if I can do this. I didn't tell them that, but I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But the role was a 4-month contract. And so I thought, okay, I can do anything for 4 months. I need the experience. And the main reason I took it was going to be a lot of work during the actual festival weekend, but the rest of the role was mostly work from home. And back in 2013, when I got that job, I ended up staying there for about 11 years, and I only left this past October to focus on speaking. Back in 2013, finding a remote job was pretty unheard of. Like, it was really difficult. And so that factor actually made it more accessible to me than the average office job where I would have to commute, maybe stand on a bus, maybe drive a lot every day or 4 days a week. And so that was kind of how I ended up working in festivals and events.
That's very cool. I love hearing those kinds of stories when things work out unexpectedly like that.
It's a lot of
Um,
fun.
yeah, the job that I was working in when the pandemic started had a similar thing where like there was no reason that I had to be physically at the office. So pretty much
Mm,
immediately switched to working from home full time. And I would usually come in like once a month for various, admin cleanup kind of stuff. So
mm,
that was that was a nice change because being able to regulate myself at home is obviously a lot easier.
Totally.
Um, so yeah, I think it's really wonderful that we're both kind of going into this world and the advocacy.
Mm,
Um, because part of it for me, I think I talked about this on another episode, was just when I was younger, I really felt like as I said, I was very awkward and shy and I was not good at talking to people. And so I felt very ignored and invisible. And now that I've found my
mm.
voice and my confidence, I'm just so excited to be able to like use it for good,
Yes.
and speak up
Mhm.
for people that are not as confident to speak up for themselves. So,
It's really
um,
amazing once you start embracing who you are and are able to stop hiding it because you're even so much more easily able to recognize your strengths that came from living with what you were hiding, and like work with yourself as opposed to against yourself, which is just so freeing.
Yeah, and it's a thing that, like, not only with not disclosing it, but even just hiding sort of like on the first episode, I was wearing these, which are blue
Mhm.
light blocking glasses. And
Mm.
it's funny enough, like, I think that they look really weird. And like, some people give me funny looks, but I've had multiple
Yeah.
people be like, hey, those glasses are really cool. And I'm like, you think so?
Yeah.
So, but like I have a knee injury from about 15 years ago now that
Mm.
periodically will, as I say, act up, and then for like a day or two, like it's kind of wobbly and not super stable, and so I wear like a knee brace, and sometimes I use a cane. So I call that like an intermittent visible disability.
Mm.
But then things like wearing those glasses, or some people have noticed I wear earplugs a lot, um, and people notice it. And even that though, I would often want to try to hide. Like I feel awkward if I'm wearing like construction earmuffs on the subway, but sometimes I
Mm.
have to.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things. But yeah, the next question on my list here. So with having a muscle in how's it insufficient muscle, I guess. I'm trying to find the right word for it, but because the question is like what accommodations related to your disability should people be aware of? And with you, I would imagine that you don't have as much energy and stamina as the average person, so
Mm.
people just need to be mindful that you can't go on like a big long hike with them or anything. What else would there be for that?
Yeah, so the main things I kind of have struggles with are getting up from sitting on the ground. So I always prefer to sit in a chair, walking up flights of stairs. I can do stairs. I've started more often now needing a railing, depending on how high the steps are. Opening heavy doors, but I feel like that's just a human thing. Sometimes doors are just heavy. Those are a lot of it. And then also, like you mentioned, the reduced strength and stamina. I do get tired more easily and need to account for rest days. For example, this past Saturday, I had a girls' day at the Botanical Gardens in Burlington, and I was really excited. Super pretty flowers. Had a great day. Ended up walking like 8,000 steps in the day, which is a lot for me. And I liked it. But then the next day on Sunday, I just had like a home day. I was kind of wiped out. I was like, I understand why I'm tired. And it was a good day, but I just need that kind of balance. And so those are the main things I would say.
And so I'm curious, and this is going to be me kind of, I guess, putting on my like layperson hat, because it strikes me if you have only 33% of the normal cell capability, are you still able to like sort of build muscle like with people like have protein workout, or are you kind of just you have what you have?
Yeah, I am able to build muscle if I exercise more than I currently do, which I just bought a set of weights and I'm excited to start using those. And I'm also meant to take creatine, which helps build muscle, because I think people with central core disease have some of the lowest levels of creatine in their body compared to other people. And so it is more difficult for me to build muscle, but it is possible.
Hmm. So I can actually relate to this in a perhaps unexpected way. So for people that don't know, testosterone, well, people know testosterone and estrogen are the primary hormones in our bodies, and testosterone is the hormone that is more specifically related to muscle gain and building. And so one of the things that is known is in the transgender community that trans men, when they start taking testosterone, they tend to bulk up a lot just naturally.
Mm.
And trans women, when we do testosterone suppression and start taking estrogen, we actually lose muscle mass. And
Mm.
we can kind of work out and stuff to kind of minimize that. But I know for me, once I started working from home full time and got a lot less exercise, I can tell that my body has gotten weaker as well. It's not the same thing. I'm not trying to say that, but just that
No,
I can
I feel
relate
that
because
understandably.
yeah,
Yeah.
that I have experienced that this change that was, right for me in the grand scheme has had that effect, and I've had to adjust to that in some of my own ways.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is a really unique experience, I would say, among like a smaller section of people. So that's really great to know that someone else can relate that way.
Yeah. So yeah, the next question on my list here, and this might not be as much the case for your experience, but what if any discrimination or microaggressions do you experience related to your disability?
Mm. I would say in general, I either have been lucky or don't notice many. I would say I see a lot of discrimination against people with disabilities online. And I would say I haven't experienced a fraction of what I see and hear from other disabled people. The one thing that I will say that always does stick out to me is a lot of the kind of negative comments that I've gotten online have been from other people with disabilities, which is really strange to me because I would think more along the lines of like, we're all in this together. Disability affects everyone differently, like those kinds of things. We don't want to be tearing each other down. But for example, I got a comment on a reel that I posted on Instagram that actually was shared by the Invisible Disabilities Association, and they got the comment, but it was on my reel. And the reel was that I was starting the fundraiser for Mobility Awareness Month in May, and I was going to be walking 65 kilometers in May to raise money for Invisible Disability Association. And I had a few clips of my Paris trip where I was walking around, showing my face, showing landmarks. And I got a comment on that reel saying, "You don't look sick at all." Dancing around talking about a Paris trip, like, and it was somebody who said, "I have autoimmune disorder." This person said, and when he is like it's really hard for him to do anything basically. And so what I was taking from it is that he lives a disability in a certain way and he's seeing me live it in a different way and thinking that can't be real, that can't be right, how do you have a disability? And I was kind of annoyed at first, but then I got to thinking more about it and I thought, based on what this person is commenting, they're clearly having a difficult experience with their disability. And that kind of gave me more empathy of thinking, okay, it is difficult to accept maybe other people's experience of disability when you are going through a tough time. And so I did reply and said, I don't identify as sick. I have a muscle disorder. And so I think the difference between disability and chronic illness and identifying as sick, like that is a discussion as well. But yes, it does always stick out to me that I would only say that I've gotten three ableist comments or three kind of negative comments since I've started being more public online, and two of them were from people with disabilities.
Hmm. Yeah, on a similar note, I have a few friends who are wheelchair users, and that's something I've commonly heard from that realm because some people that use wheelchairs, they're not completely incapable of walking, but it's more of an energy thing. And so if you see somebody, if some people see a person get up out of a wheelchair and walk around, they're like, oh, you're not actually disabled. And like, no, they
Mhm.
are. If they didn't have
Yeah,
that wheelchair, they wouldn't have even been able to get there in the first place. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like I've
Mhm.
had times myself when I've been like lower energy or when my knee injury or back injuries, and just moving around at all takes so much more energy. And
Mhm.
if that's the unfortunate thing with disabilities, is that if it's not really visually obvious, a lot of people will discount it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Okay. And oh, yes. Um, so yeah, we kind of talked about I had a sub thing here about like sort of words
Mhm.
versus actions, because I think most of the time it's
Mhm.
probably going to come in the form of words, of like comments on the internet, because
Mhm.
we're both like I've actually not that being transgender is a disability by any stretch, but it does change how people treat me. And
Mhm.
I've been quite lucky, all considered, that I haven't
Mhm.
gotten a lot of like, hateful, mean comments about that.
Mhm.
That may change as I become even more of a public figure, but
Mhm.
yeah. So let's talk about your, I guess your brand, we'll say.
Mhm.
So how did you come into the Daily Yay and the Lauren Says Yay? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I have been known for a majority of my life to say yay a lot. I actually looked back a while ago in my, I think it was my elementary school yearbook, and in my grade 8 graduation photos, and they have the little like write up beside, it listed my favorite saying as yay. So this is 100% real, has been going on for a long time. And I think it was in my early 20s at some point. Somebody just happened to say the phrase to me, life is too short to not have a daily yay. And it really stuck with me. And I was like, absolutely. Like, I've always been kind of a positive, optimistic person. But when I started adopting the idea of life is too short to not have a daily yay, it kind of became my survival strategy because with my disability, you can imagine everything is just a little bit harder, like struggling to get it from the ground, stairs, lower energy, stamina, just everything, but still having to manage a normal life. Everything is just a little bit harder. And so being able to consciously identify and appreciate something good that day, which is how I describe the daily yay, as maybe you saw a super cute dog in your elevator. Maybe you finally tried a bakery you've been wanting to try. Maybe someone said something that was just hilarious or gave you a compliment. It could be a lot of different things. But once I started like appreciating the daily yay, even when things are hard, I was like, there's still good out there. There's still fun. There's still joy. There's still like when you're struggling, I think it can be hard to find those moments of joy, but that's really when you need them the most to be able to get through what you're going through. And so that really the daily yay has kind of become my life philosophy. And Lauren Says Yay is just 100% accurate.
Very nice. Have you had your daily yay yet today?
I made a cup of tea and woke up shortly before this. So far, my daily yay is this cup of tea in a bunny mug.
Oh, that's
But
so
we'll have to
cute.
see where the day takes me.
I have a mug, unfortunately not within reach right now, but it says happy juice on it. So
I
that's
love it.
whenever I have tea or hot chocolate, it's my happy juice.
I love it.
Um, yeah, and I guess that you're absolutely right. And I've heard that a lot of times, that like,
Mhm,
stopping to appreciate just one thing every day. And I know some people call it the daily gratitude, and they'll do it at the end of the
mhm,
day. And there was actually a time where I had this routine where I would go before bed. I would kind of just jot down some of the things that I accomplished, or that I did that day, even if they weren't
mhm,
necessarily accomplishments. And I actually think I managed to do that for several years running. And then at some point, I just kind of,
mhm.
I think I got like really depressed at one point and I stopped doing it. But
Fair.
yeah, like it's a thing like now with my sign language idea,
Mhm,
that came from that I studied sign language previously, not because I needed it, but a friend of mine was like, hey, I want to go take this class, and I know that you like to learn new things. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, yeah, this sounds
awesome.
interesting. And I loved it. And as I was trying to think of, stuff like shine language, because my brain makes those kinds of wordplay connections, and
Yeah.
I was like, that's so perfect, because I just feel like when you're kind of in your zone, you're being your like brightest, most vibrant self, you're shining. So like, what lights you up, what makes you shine, and it's, like I said, it's a similar vibe, and so I love that
Yeah.
we're both doing that.
What a cool origin story.
Yeah. So yeah, I think what so aside from, I guess, changing people's minds, because that would be arguably the most powerful,
Mhm.
wide-reaching thing. I've been sort of asking the guests, like, what other singular change do you think would potentially make the most impact in general to the most people in terms of like making things more accessible and accommodating?
Mm. Overwhelmingly, I think just listening to people with disabilities and what they need, because I hear a lot of the time that people are assuming what people with disabilities need or don't understand that disability is not one size fits all. So something that might make it easier for one person might still be inaccessible for someone else. So I think having experience and like hearing the voices of a range of different kinds of people with disabilities can do a lot to further accessibility in terms of listening to what people actually need instead of building something and then checking with them later, realizing it doesn't work. Just having their voices there from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that ties into that phrase, you may have heard of it as well, nothing about us without us idea.
Yes. Yeah.
Because unfortunately, yeah, we often don't get consulted when people are trying to do things supposedly for us. I know
Mhm.
that's a big thing in the autism community as well. So definitely. Um, I guess the other question I have, I know we're both kind of going in similar directions with our aspirations, but where would you like to see yourself in, say, 5 years from now?
Mm, that's a good question. I've never been much of a long-term planner. And I think a lot of my journey, I've been open about my disability on the speaking journey for a little over 2.5 years now. So it's now actually, as I say that, a little while to think that I would be like halfway through a 5-year journey that would have started right before I did Speaker Slam or started speaking about it. But when I think about 5 years from now, I think I would love to have speaking be a more like consistent main thing, and I would love to just keep hearing from people with disabilities, and even hearing from people who were hiding other aspects of themselves. Could be a financial situation, a family situation, disability. There's so many things that people don't want to talk about or that they hide. Love to hear from them, keep hearing from them as well as I share my story, to hear their realizations that embracing who you are can make your life so much stronger and better. And that is definitely the kind of impact that I want to have, is just helping people own who they are and embrace who they are and see the strengths that came out of that.
I could not have said that better if I tried.
Thank
You're very good with your words.
you.
So yeah, I'm gonna take a quick moment here just to do a little bit of so as I mentioned before, is this the one? There it is. I had to make sure I got the right thing. So as I mentioned, these glasses are blue light blocking glasses. They are from a company called Block Blue Light, and I do have a an agreement with, I guess, an affiliate thing with them. So if you go to the specific link on the screen, which is https www.blockbluelight.com/? Equals Lacey. So that's a lot. I'm doing that for the people that are visually impaired. If you go to that link, you get 10% off if they're not having some kind of other sale. They have glasses, they have lights. I don't have one within easy reach at the moment, but they have lights of different sizes, different types. And I actually had this issue for a while that I would get migraines whenever I washed my hair, and I've never been able to figure out what caused that. But I switched to using their purely red, no blue light lamp when I would wash my hair. I didn't have a normal light. I would just use that. So it's basically like showering in the red light district almost.
Mhm.
And somehow something about that reduced my migraines by like 90%. So and these glasses, they totally help me. So this is a very long little advertisement here. I didn't mean to go that long, but I do really support their products. And the other thing that I do, I have an events company that's not very active right now because it's summer and everyone's like away at the cottage or at the beach or wherever and not wanting to be so much indoors for events. But in the fall, I think we'll be coming back. And so that's Artie Mix Events, which is primarily playful, creative connection for grown-ups. And the one last thing that I just want to give a little nod to here, I posted a video on Instagram yesterday, which is from a photo shoot that I did a couple months ago. And the very last picture that we did of that session, I'm going to put up on the screen here, was this, which is that was my daily yay for that day, is the picture
I
of me
love it.
jumping with this just like pure joy, happiness face on, and a green coat and a green dress. And every time I look at that, it just makes me happy. So I put out that little video, which ends on that and makes me happy.
Nice.
Is there anything else that you would like to say before we conclude today?
Just that if people want to connect or follow my journey, they can find me on Instagram and most social media platforms at Lauren Says Yay or at laurensaysyay.com.
Very nice. Well, thank you again for joining me. Again, I've been Lacey Artemis. My website is laceyartemis.com. We're both on LinkedIn. That's kind of where the speakers often hang out. So feel free to connect and reach out. And until next time, this has been Hat Collecting the Disability Experience. And I hope that you have many yays in your day today and beyond.
You
All
as
right.
well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right.